There are seasons in life that feel like stillness, like waiting rooms with no windows, days where nothing moves, where every step feels heavy, where progress seems like a story someone else is living. But what if those moments weren't punishment? They were preparation. What if the silence is where the roots grow deeper, unseen but essential? But you see, you are not stuck. You are becoming. You are being carved by contrast, refined by resistance, softened by surrender. Life isn't holding you back. It's tuning you, precisely, like an instrument meant to play something far more powerful than noise, meaning. Every delay, every detour, every quiet breakdown, it all belongs. It's not chaos, it's choreography. You were never meant to hustle your way into greatness. You were meant to align with it, because in the symphony of existence, even stillness has a rhythm, and when the time comes, you won't rise by force. You'll rise because your soul finally heard the cue it had been waiting for. Let's talk about that feeling, the one where everything seems to have paused, not broken, not ruined, just paused. You're showing up, doing the things, ticking the boxes, and yet it feels like you're standing in wet cement, stuck, watching the world move while you stay still. But here's what no one tells you about these moments. Stillness is not stuckness. You're not failing. You're not lazy. You're not behind. You are in a pause, and not just any pause, a sacred one. Because sometimes the most powerful thing life can do for you is not push you forward, but hold you still, to root you before you rise, to hollow out the noise so the truth has space to echo back. We live in a world that glorifies momentum, that worships speed, that celebrates the loud, the visible, the finished product. But growth, real, irreversible growth, usually starts in the dark, in the quiet, in the parts of your life no one claps for. It begins in the hallway between the chapters. And that's where people get it twisted. Because when life slows down, we assume we've done something wrong. When in reality, life might just be getting you ready for something your current level can't carry yet. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel loud when you're uncertain? How doing nothing starts to itch when your identity has been tied to constant movement? That discomfort, that's not a sign you're stuck. That's a signal that something deeper is shifting. Because even when nothing looks like it's changing on the surface, something is changing. You are. The inner wiring is being rearranged. The old patterns are breaking down, sometimes without your permission, sometimes with your full surrender. And that surrender, that's not giving up. That's giving in. That's allowing the universe, God, whatever you believe in, to recalibrate your path, to redirect your energy, to prepare the soil of your life for the next harvest. You don't grow a tree by yanking on its branches. You grow it by giving its roots time to anchor unseen in the dark. That's what this season is for. It's not a punishment. It's not a delay. It's an invitation to listen to the part of you that doesn't shout, but whispers. The part of you that remembers who you are when the world isn't watching. The part of you that's not addicted to performance, but aligned with purpose. So if you're here right now, if you feel like you're standing still while everyone else is sprinting past you, I want you to hear me when I say this. You are not stuck. You're being held. You're being shaped. You're being recalibrated for a life that's calling you to something bigger, bolder, and more honest than the one you've been tolerating. This is not the end of your momentum. It's the deep breath before the leap, the still point before the wave builds, the pause between the notes that makes the music whole. Because stillness isn't the absence of movement. It's the preparation for intentional movement. And when it's time, when it's truly time, you won't need to force it. You'll move with clarity. You'll move with conviction. You're afraid to stay still, but because the next version of you is ready to rise. Stillness isn't failure. It's formation. Let's be real. Most of what's holding you back isn't out there. It's not the economy. It's not your schedule. It's not even your circumstances. It's the script running silently in the background of your mind. Think about it like this. Your brain is like an operating system, and like any system, it runs on code. But this code isn't written in numbers. It's written in beliefs. In most of that code, it wasn't written by you. It was written by experiences, by voices you absorbed growing up, by fear, by failure, by culture, by patterns you didn't even realize you inherited.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the kicker. Your subconscious doesn't need your permission to run that code. It just loops it again and again, quietly, consistently, completely unchallenged. Every time you tell yourself, I'm just not good at this, every time you think, a people like me don't get ahead, every time you hear that dream is too big, you're not thinking. You're replaying. You're not stuck. You're running outdated programming. It's like trying to download your future on dial-up. The system can't keep up because it's overloaded with old files that were never meant to guide you forever. What kept you safe back then is now keeping you small. And here's the wild part. Your brain doesn't care if the story is true. It only cares if it's familiar. That's how the subconscious works. It clings to what it knows, even if what it knows is keeping you trapped. So the version of you that wakes up every morning feeling like an imposter, that's not your truth. It's your training. The version of you that dreams big at night and doubts it by morning, that's not your limit. It's your loop. You've been rehearsing a version of yourself that no longer fits, and it's time to rewrite the code. But let's be clear. You don't reprogram your mind with one inspiring quote and don't. You do it with daily interruption. You do it by noticing the old script in real time and choosing deliberately to speak something new. Every time you catch yourself saying, I can't, you pause and say, that's the old me talking. Oh. Every time you feel resistance and think, this is too hard, you remind yourself a growth always feels like friction. You speak a new code into the places that have been looping the old one. Now, is this easy?
No, it's simple.
But it's not easy because your brain loves efficiency. It will always default to the shortcut, even if that shortcut keeps leading you back to fear, procrastination, self-sabotage. That's why this work requires attention, intention, repetition. The old code says, I'll play it safe. The new code says, I am safe to expand. The old code says, you always mess things up. The new code says, I trust myself to learn forward. And the thing is, every time you speak the new code, even if you don't believe it fully yet, you're carving a new path in your brain. That's not just motivation. That's neuroscience. New thoughts create new wiring. New wiring creates new behavior. New behavior creates a new life. So no, your brain isn't broken. It's just been loyal to a story that's outlived its purpose. And now it's your turn to become the author. You can't think your way into a new identity. You have to train it. And every single time you override the old code, even if your voice shakes, even if you're scared, even if it feels awkward, you're training the future you to take the lead. You're teaching your mind to expect expansion. You're teaching your life to follow your intention. And eventually, you won't just think differently. You'll move differently. You'll walk into rooms like you belong. You'll ask for things you used to doubt you deserved. You'll become the person your old programming never could have imagined. Because when you change the story, you change the system. Here's something wild most people don't realize. Your brain is listening all the time, not just when you're reading, not just when you're learning, not even just when you're thinking consciously. It's listening to what you believe, to what you repeat, and most importantly, to what you focus on. And at the center of this quiet but powerful filtering system is something called the Reticular Activating System, RAS for short. Sounds scientific, right? It is. But it's also deeply personal because your RAS is the part of your brain that decides what gets your attention and what doesn't. That's its job, to sift through the millions of bits of information hitting your senses every single second and say, this matters, that doesn't. And guess what determines what it lets through? You do, not consciously though. Not with logic, with focus, with repetition, with emotion. If you constantly think, I'm behind, I'm not enough, nothing ever works out for me, then your RAS is going to go, got it? Let me find all the evidence in the world to support that. And suddenly that's what you see everywhere. Proof that you're stuck. Proof that it's too late. Proof that everyone else is thriving while you're flailing. But here's the truth. You trained it to do that, not on purpose, but you did. That's what most people miss. You're not broken. You're focused, just focused on the wrong thing. And what you focus on, your brain turns into your reality. That's why two people can walk into the exact same room and see completely different things. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One sees potential, the other sees a reason to shrink. Same room, same moment, but totally different filters. Because your race doesn't care what's true and only cares what you've told it is important. And how do you tell it what's important? And how do you tell it what's important? By what you obsess over, by what you repeat, by what you emotionally charge with meaning. So if you've been waking up feeling behind, unworthy, anxious, it's not because you are those things. It's because your RAS has been trained to tune into anything that reinforces that story. You've literally been filtering out your own potential. But here's where it gets powerful, because the moment you intentionally shift your focus, you begin to shift your filter. Start small. Wake up and look for 3 things you're proud of instead of 3 things you need to fix. Before bed, ask your brain to show you where progress showed up, even in the tiniest way. Throughout the day, say out loud, I show me possibilities. I'm training my brain to see the good. I trust myself to grow. Say it even if you don't believe it yet. Because your RAS doesn't wait for belief. It waits for consistency. The more you focus on what you want to grow, the more your brain highlights opportunities you used to overlook. You'll notice the email you almost ignored. You'll spot the opening in a conversation where you could speak up. You'll catch yourself doubting and interrupt the pattern because now you're aware. It's like putting on a new lens. And suddenly the world starts reflecting back to you a different version of yourself. One that's capable, one that's rising, one that's been there all along, just hidden behind the fog of old focus. This is the science of focus. This is not hype. This is how the brain works. So when you catch yourself spiraling into self-doubt or replaying old limitations, pause and ask, what am I training my brain to find? Because your mind is always looking, always filtering, always feeding you more of what you keep telling it matters. That's the breakthrough. If you want to change your life, you have to change what your brain thinks is worth noticing. Let's talk about something we all do, and most of the time, we don't even realize it. We run our lives on autopilot, habits, patterns, routines. You wake up, check your phone, scroll for a while, feel a little behind, grab coffee, maybe rush through your morning. Same route to work, same reactions, same thoughts about your goals, your self-worth, your time or lack of it. And then, before you know it, the day's over again. It's not just your schedule that's automatic. It's your mind. And it's not your fault. It's how the brain works. Your brain is wired for efficiency, not innovation. Once it figures out a shortcut that gets you through the day, it sticks with it. Even if that shortcut keeps you small, even if it keeps you tired, even if it keeps you doubting yourself, it just wants to conserve energy. So the moment you repeat a thought, a reaction, or a belief enough times, your brain logs it as, oh, cool, this must be the truth. And it locks it in. No questions asked. That's how you end up stuck in loops that look like, I'm not confident enough, or I always give up, or I'm too old to start over. Not because you want to stay there, but because your brain is trying to help you conserve energy by automating those stories. But here's the good news. What your brain automates, you can rewire. This is the moment where things get exciting, because the same part of your brain that keeps you looping can also be trained to launch you forward. And the bridge between those two realities, it's your habits. Not the big, impressive one. Not the Instagrammable, perfectly color-coded, 6-step morning routine ones. I'm talking about the micro habits. The small shifts that seem almost laughably simple, but pack a punch. Because here's what we get wrong about transformation. We think it's about intensity. But real, sustainable change, that comes from consistency. One tiny decision, repeated, rewired, reinforced. You want to shift your mindset. Start with one thought pattern. Maybe instead of waking up and immediately spiraling into your to-do list, you take 60 seconds to ask, what am I proud of from yesterday? That's it. One moment of focus, one conscious override, one interruption to the autopilot. And when you do that every day, you start building a new baseline, a new pattern, a new way of being. The old neural loop starts fading, not because you fought it with willpower, but because you starved it of attention. Attention. Meanwhile, the new loop, the one that focuses on possibility, progress, and presence, starts getting stronger. Now your RAS, your brain's filter, starts catching on. Oh, it says, we're doing something different now. And guess what? It starts helping you. It starts showing you more evidence that your new habits are who you are now. It starts aligning with your vision, not your fear. You stop being a product of your past, and you start becoming a product of your practice. This isn't about perfection. This is about pattern recognition and pattern replacement. You don't have to be motivated every day. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to decide. Once, then again, until your new way of thinking, acting, and showing up feels like home. Because identity is not a fixed trait. It's a set of habits you no longer question. So if you feel stuck, it's not because you're weak or lost. It's because your brain is on repeat and you haven't told it to switch the track yet. And that's the most powerful shift you can make. Not trying to become someone new, but starting to act like the person you were always meant to be. One habit, one decision, one override at a time. Autopilot doesn't lead to growth, awareness does. Let's talk about resistance, because if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to change your life, if you're doing anything uncomfortable or unfamiliar, resistance will absolutely show up. Not maybe. That internal drag, that voice in your head that whispers, you don't have time, or this won't work, or you're not ready. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shout. It shows up in the quiet, the delay, the scroll, the self-doubt masked as logic. The sudden desire to organize your desk when you're just about to start something that matters. Here's what most people don't realize. Resistance isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's actually proof that something's moving. When you try to step outside your comfort zone, when you start doing something new, when you begin thinking in a way that challenges your old identity, your brain sounds the alarm. It doesn't know the difference between danger and discomfort. It just knows this is unfamiliar, so better play it safe. That's what resistance is. It's your brain trying to keep you from changing, because change requires energy, and energy means uncertainty. And uncertainty, that's the enemy as far as your survival brain is concerned. So of course you feel resistance. Of course you get that friction. That's not failure. It's a signal. It means you're right on time. Think about it like this. Resistance is like a pressure door. And on the other side of it is the thing you actually want: growth, momentum, fulfillment, clarity. But the only way through is through. You don't wait for it to disappear. You meet it. You push into it. You prove to your own nervous system that you can survive discomfort. And the moment you do that, something incredible happens. Your brain recalibrates. Your RAS, that filter we've been talking about, begins to stop flagging the new thing as a threat. The more often you override resistance, the more trust you build within yourself. That trust, that's what becomes confidence. Because confidence isn't the absence of resistance. It's the decision to move with it. This is why people stay stuck for years. Not because they lack potential, but because they mistake resistance for a red light instead of what it really is. A green light just wearing a disguise. So let's reframe it. Next time you feel resistance, instead of backing away, name it. Call it what it is. A biological reflex, not a truth. Then take action anyway. Action is how you reclaim control. It's how you retrain your mind. It's how you take the story that says you're not ready and replace it with evidence that says, I just did it scared and I survived. You want to know the trick? Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait to feel like it, because you won't. Not at first. If you wait until the resistance is gone, you'll wait forever. You move first. You speak first. You show up first. And the feelings, they follow the action. Not the other way around. It's the tiny override that rewrites everything. You open the laptop when your brain says, what's the point? You go for the walk when it says, you're too tired. You make the call when it whispers, you're probably going to fail. Every time you act against resistance, you chip away at the old programming. You send a new message to your brain. Hey, this version of me, the one who follows through, the one who doesn't wait, the one who's becoming unstoppable, that's who's in charge now. Resistance won't ever fully disappear, but it loses its grip the moment you stop letting it decide who you become. You don't beat resistance with strength. You beat it with choice and area. Consistent, courageous, tiny choices, because your future doesn't need perfection. It just needs you to keep showing up anyway. You've probably heard the phrase, trust the process. It sounds nice on a coffee mug, but when you're in it, when everything feels messy and uncertain and slow, that phrase can feel like the last thing you want to hear. But here's the truth. If you're reprogramming your mind, if you're doing the work to grow, to unlearn, to break free from old patterns, it's not going to be instant, because you're not just changing thoughts, you're changing wiring, and wiring takes time. Your brain, like we've talked about, is efficient. It loves loops. So when you start feeding it new beliefs, when you start taking action from a place of intention instead of habit, it gets confused. It resists or it pushes back, not because you're failing, but because this is exactly what change looks like. That in-between space, that's where most people quit. They've started showing up. They've planted the seeds, but nothing's blooming yet. And so they think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But here's what you have to remember. You're not just building a result. You're building a foundation. The rewiring doesn't happen when you see the change. It happens in all the moments when you don't see it, but you keep going in. You choose the new thought, even when the old one feels louder. You take the small action, even when it seems pointless. You stay in the process, even when it's quiet and slow and deeply uncomfortable. That's the real magic, because growth doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like silence, like showing up to the gym when nobody's watching, like journaling when your brain tells you it's stupid, like getting up after a setback and choosing not to spiral. It's in those quiet, unglamorous decisions that you're literally rewiring the way your brain operates. And then one day, you react differently. You wake up with a little more clarity. You say something out loud that surprises you because it sounds like someone who believes in themselves. You catch yourself choosing peace instead of panic, and you realize you've changed. Not all at once, but layer by layer, shift by shift, choice by choice. And here's what's even more powerful. Once you've felt what it's like to break through that inner resistance, once you've experienced your own momentum, you'll never run. Know that feeling. That's when growth becomes addictive. Not in a hype way, in a deeply grounding way. Because you've tasted what it's like to feel aligned, to feel capable, to feel in motion. And now you want to protect that. So what do? You keep trusting the process, even when it's slow, especially when it's slow. Because the more you trust it, the more you reinforce that new identity. The one who doesn't bail on themselves, the one who finishes, the one who gets stronger every single time they choose to keep going. You see, transformation isn't an event. It's a rhythm, a dance, a constant conversation between who you were and who you're becoming. And the more you lean in, the more you let go of the timeline and fall in love with the practice, the more unstoppable you become. Because now you're not just reacting to life, you're designing it. You're no longer waiting to feel ready. You're remembering you already are. And if you're in that space right now, where things feel slow, where it looks like nothing is happening, please hear this. The quiet is not the absence of growth. It's the proof of it. Keep going. Because the process isn't testing your worth, it's revealing your power.